Hi, and welcome to the pre-calculus notes for chapter 2.3, real zeros and polynomial functions. This is day 2, so we're going to be looking at some more long division of polynomials, but maybe a little bit harder problems. All right, so the first one we've got, we're going to take the 6x cubed plus the x squared plus 3x plus 12. We're going to divide it by 3x minus 4. So you're going to put the 6x cubed polynomial underneath the division bar and the 3x minus 4 on the outside, and we're going to start by dividing 3x into 6x cubed, which goes in there 2x squared times, so we write it above the x squared term. Then we're going to multiply, so we're going to have 2x squared times 3x, which is 6x cubed. Then we're going to have 2x squared times negative 4, which is negative 8x squared. Now we're going to subtract, so 6x cubed minus 6x cubed is 0. X squared minus negative 8x squared, so we actually want to add it, would be 9x squared. The next step is to bring down, so we're going to bring down the plus 3x, and now we're going to divide. 3x goes into 9x squared, 3x times, so we write it above the x term. Now we're going to multiply. 3x times 3x is 9x squared, 3x times negative 4 is negative 12x. Now we subtract. 9x squared minus 9x squared is 0. 3x minus negative 12x, so we're actually going to add it. We get 15x. Bring down the last term, 12. And now we're going to divide. 3x goes into 15x 5 times, so we write it above the numeric term. 5 times 3x is 15x, and 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. And when we go to subtract, these cancel, and 12 minus minus, so plus 20 is 32. That's our remainder. You can write your remainder as a fraction, putting your remainder in the numerator and your divisor in the denominator. All right. The next problem, we're going to take 8x to the 4th minus 2x squared plus 6x plus 12 and put it under the division bar. We are missing the cube in here, so I filled in my placeholder of the 0x cubed. And we're going to start by dividing. So negative 2x goes into 8x to the 4th, negative 4x to the 3rd times. And now we're going to multiply. Negative 4x to the 3rd times negative 2x is positive 8x to the 4th. And negative 4x cubed plus times positive 5 is negative 20x to the 3rd. And now we're going to subtract. 8x to the 4th minus 8x to the 4th is 0. 0x cubed minus minus, so plus 20x to the 3rd is 20x to the 3rd. Bring down your negative 2x squared. Now divide. Negative 2x goes into 20x cubed, negative 10x squared times, so we write it right above the x squared. And now we're going to multiply. Negative 10x squared times negative 2x is positive 20x cubed, and negative 10x squared times 5 is negative 50x squared. Now we're going to subtract. These are opposites and they'll cancel. This becomes negative 2x squared plus 50x squared, which is 48x squared. Bring down the plus 6x. Now we're going to divide. Negative 2x goes into 48x squared, negative 24x times, so write it above the x term. And then multiply. Negative 24x times negative 2x is 48x. And negative 24x times 5 is negative 120x. And now we're going to subtract. These are opposites. And 6x minus minus, so plus. The 120x becomes 126x. And bring down our last term, the 12. And we're going to divide. Negative 2x goes into 126x, negative 63 times. Now we multiply. Negative 63 times negative 2x is positive 126x. And negative 63 times 5 is negative 315. These cancel out. And we have 12 minus minus, so plus 315. And we have a remainder of 327. So our final answer is negative 4x cubed minus 10x squared minus 24x minus 63 plus 327 over negative 2x plus 5. Sometimes you'll see long division of polynomials written as fractions, right? So the polynomial that's in the numerator goes under the division bar, and the denominator goes outside. Notice that this is also missing the x to the first, so I filled in my placeholder, my filler. Okay? All right, so let's start by dividing. X squared goes into 6x cubed. 6x times, so I wrote that above the x term. And then I multiply. 6x times 6x squared is 6x cubed. And 6x times 0x is 0x squared. And 6x times 5 is 30. So when I go to subtract all this, these cancel. And then negative 5x squared minus 0x squared is negative 5x squared. 3x minus 30x is negative 27x. And so we're going to bring down that minus 2. And now we're going to divide. X squared goes into negative 5x squared times negative 5 times. And now we're going to multiply. Negative 5 times x squared is negative 5x squared. And negative 5 times 0x is 0x. Negative 5 times positive 5 is negative 25. Watch your signs, obviously. Okay, now let's subtract. Negative 5x squared minus negative 5x squared is 0, because that's plus. They're opposites, they go to 0. Negative 27x plus minus 0x is negative 27x. And negative 2 minus minus, so plus 25 is 23. That's the remainder. Okay. All right, this example says, given that x squared minus 3x minus 4 is a factor, use long division to completely factor x to the fourth plus 4x cubed minus 15x squared minus 58x minus 40. So that goes under the division bar, and this goes outside. Right? Now we're going to see if we can factor even more. Okay, so x squared goes into x to the fourth, x squared times. And we're going to multiply x squared times x squared, which is x to the fourth. X squared times negative 3x, which is negative 3x cubed. And x squared times negative 4, which is negative 4x squared. Subtract all that. These will cancel. And we'll have 4x cubed minus minus 3x to the third, which is 7x cubed. Negative 15x squared minus minus 4x squared, which is negative 11x squared. And then we bring down this minus 58x term. All right, now division. X squared goes into 7x cubed, 7x times, write it above the x term. Now multiply. 7x times x squared is 7x cubed. 7x times negative 3x is negative 21x squared. And 7x times negative 4 is negative 28x. Now let's subtract. These cancel, go to 0. Negative 11x squared minus minus 21x squared is 10x squared. Negative 58x minus minus 28x is negative 30x. And then we brought down this negative 40 or minus 40. Okay? So let's divide. X squared into 10x squared is 10. 10 times x squared is 10x squared. 10 times negative 3x is negative 30x. And 10 times negative 4 is negative 40. So we're going to subtract. These cancel, these cancel, these cancel. We got a 0 out here, which is good because that's kind of what they wanted us to happen. So the x squared minus 3x minus 4 is a factor. And x squared plus 7x plus 10 is a factor. But what you're going to notice is that each of these trinomials are each easily factorable. Okay? X minus 4 and x plus 1 are the factors of this trinomial. And x plus 5 and x plus 2 are the factors of this trinomial. So there are actually 4 binomials that factor from this big, long polynomial that ends up being, what, 5 terms? We got it down to 4 binomials. All right? And the last one, we're given that 4x minus 3 is a factor. Use long division to factor the 4x cubed plus 25x squared minus 141x plus 90. Okay, so we should get 0 on this one. So let's see. 4x goes into 4x cubed, x squared times. X squared times 4x is 4x cubed. X squared times negative 3 is negative 3x squared. Then we subtract, these cancel. 25x squared minus 3x squared is 28x squared, bringing down the minus 141x. And divide. 4x goes into 28x squared 7x times. 7x times 4x is 28x. 7x times negative 3 is negative 21x. These will cancel. Negative 41x minus 21x is negative 120x. Bring down the 90. And divide. 4x goes into negative 120x, negative 30 times. Negative 30 times 4x is negative 120x. Negative 30 times negative 3 is, negative 30x times negative 3, that should be plus right there, right? Plus 90, but when you subtract it, you go to 0, okay? And these will cancel and go to 0 as well. So our factors are the 4x minus 3, which they gave us, and the x squared plus 7x minus 30, which we got right here. And then this trinomial is even more factorable. That's a word. It factors to x plus 10 and x minus 3. So we have these three binomials that are all factors of this 4-term polynomial. All right.